Welcome to the Deep Dive. So if you've been following the entertainment world at all, you've probably heard this term thrown around a lot. Animation revival.
That's everywhere.
It is. We've got a whole stack of sources in front of us, all detailing this really explosive content slate for animation. So our mission today is to unpack what 2026 actually looks like.
And we're talking everything.
Everything from the huge studio sequels you'll see in theaters to the, high concept genre stuff that's just dominating streaming.
Okay, so let's unpack that strategy shift because it's important to get the context here. This idea of a revival, it's not really coming from nowhere. It's more of a necessary pivot.
A pivot from what?
From some pretty big box office disappointments. I mean, you saw major IPs like Pixar's original film, Elio, in 2025, really struggle to find an audience and make those huge returns.
So the old family-friendly machine was starting to sputter a bit.
Exactly. But the counter argument, the other side of that coin, is what's happening on the streamers. You look at the data, you have these surprise global hits.
Like K-pop Demon Hunters?
A perfect example. It became Netflix's most streamed show ever. And that just clearly demonstrates this strong, undeniable, and growing appetite for animated content.
Specifically for adults.
Specifically for adult audiences who are watching on demand. And 2026 feels like the year the whole industry is finally pivoting to cash in on that.
Okay, so let's start with the big screen, because the traditional studios are definitely trying to navigate this new reality.
They are.
The 2026 theatrical slate, it really looks like they're hedging their bets. You've got the big sequels to bring in the reliable money.
Of course.
But also these new originals that feel like they're consciously aiming for a slightly older audience than, their usual sweet spot.
And that adjustment is so crucial. If you connect it back to that streaming success, it looks like this very deliberate effort to capture that Gen Z audience that's, aging out of kids' movies.
You can see it right in the choice of protagonists. Yeah. So Pixar's big original for the year is Hoppers. That's out March 6th. It's a sci-fi comedy, and it feels like it's trying to get that quirky original Pixar magic back.
Right, but the main character is a 19-year-old, Mabel Tanaka, who uses tech to transfer her mind into a robotic beaver. I mean, that's not a 10-year-old.
No, absolutely not. And that's an intentional choice. It's a theme that gets echoed in Disney's big original Hexed, which is coming in the fall, November 25th.
Tell me about that one.
So that follows an awkward teenage boy and his Type A mom, as they call her, discovering he has magical powers. It's set between the real world and a secret world of magic. Again, you have a teenage protagonist.
So Hoppers and Hexed are both using these late teen, young adult characters to tell these really high concept stories.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, DreamWorks is taking a bit of a conceptual risk with Forgotten Island on September 25th.
This one sounds fascinatingly dark for them.
It does. It's about two best friends who get trapped in a magical world, and the only way they can get home is to literally forget each other forever.
Wow. And that's from Joel Crawford, who did Puss in Boots.
Yeah, the very same. So it's definitely pushing the thematic boundaries for them. But what's so interesting is that the money you need to fund these ambitious new ideas, it often comes from their biggest, most bankable IP.
Which brings us, inevitably, to the sequels.
Precisely. Toy Story 5 is slated for June 19th. And look, there's been some fan concern online about timeline consistency, about stretching the story too thin.
Does it risk undermining the whole thing?
That's the question. But the sources suggest we should look past the timeline stuff and focus on the premise, which is toys who are worried about being replaced.
Okay.
I mean, if you connect that to the bigger picture, that feels incredibly relevant in our current AI-driven era of displacement anxiety.
That's a great point. And the early trailers. Visually, it looks absolutely stunning.
It does. They are leveraging huge advances at Pixar, specifically their new rendering tech. For anyone not in the weeds on this, when you talk about a tool like RenderMan 27,
you're talking about a massive upgrade.
A massive upgrade in how light behaves. It allows for photorealistic textures, incredibly complex lighting. It gives the film a visual fidelity you've just never seen in the franchise before. It's technology being used to safeguard a huge property.
The other giant sequel we have to talk about is the Super Mario Galaxy movie. April 3rd from Illumination and Nintendo.
Yep, they're getting the whole cast back together from the 2023 film.
But they are making a huge leap in the lore. They're skipping straight to Galaxy, which means they're kind of bypassing a lot of Super Mario World history fans might have been expecting.
The boldest move, though, is the character development, especially for Bowser.
Oh, this is interesting.
The sources say that after he was captured and shrunk in the last movie, he's been moved to this magnificent castle, and in it, he is actively working through his demons.
How?
Through art. He's taken up painting as a creative outlet. It's this really compelling, unexpected twist on the villain archetype. It offers a depth the games rarely even touch on.
Okay, so if the theatrical side is about hedging bets, the streaming side is just, it's going all in on disruption.
This is where the strategy shifts dramatically.
It's a genre explosion. And what's so fascinating is this massive move toward adult animation that is so heavily influenced by international styles, especially Japanese anime. It's moving so far away from just being domestic sitcom-style comedy.
That is the critical insight. If you look at the data, something like, say, Rick and Morty, a very culturally specific sci-fi comedy, it does great in English-speaking markets.
Right.
But pure genre shows, action, serious drama, high-concept sci-fi, those really start to fly internationally. And the streamers, your Amazons and Netflixes, they are chasing that global audience. They're driving the whole category forward.
And we're getting some incredibly sophisticated, really intellectual genre adaptations right away in 2026.
Yeah.
Like the Darwin Incident, that's scheduled for January.
This one is being positioned as one of the most intellectual animations of the entire year. It's based on Shun Umezawa's manga.
And the premise?
It follows a 15-year-old named Charlie, who is a humanzee, a human-chimpanzee hybrid. The series is grappling with these profound ideas of identity, discrimination, biotechnology, all while he's fighting an extremist eco-terrorist group.
Wow. So it's a high-stakes thriller.
A very high-stakes thriller. And then you also have Demons of the Shadow Realm in April. This is hugely anticipated.
Because it's from Hiromu Arakawa.
The creator of Full Metal Alchemist, so you know the pedigree is there. This is a return to high-concept fantasy, focusing on the bond between twins who are tied to demons, all set in this really intricate rural world.
And that commitment to deep serialized fantasy, you can see how it's now influencing even domestic productions, driving this visual evolution.
Absolutely.
You see it with Sony Pictures Animation's new show, Go8. That's debuting February 13th. It's a sports comedy about a contact sport called Roarball with anthropomorphic animals.
But the style is the thing.
The style is the whole thing. It uses that multi-layered, visually dynamic, Spider-Verse-like animation. That distinct visual language isn't a gimmick anymore. It's become a competitive necessity.
Which it raises a really important question that connects all of these different projects. Who is actually making all this content? This massive volume, the sequels, the originals, the international adaptations. It requires this incredible, almost industrial level production engine. And our sources all kept pointing to one place, Titmouse, Inc.
The studio that seems to be everywhere right now.
Exactly. Titmouse was founded way back in 2000. They now have 1,200 employees spread across LA, New York, Vancouver, all the major hubs.
And the volume is just staggering.
The co-founder, Chris Pernosky, said they have roughly 20 series in production at the same time. And he pointed out that 20 years ago, that kind of capacity would have covered pretty much the entire North American animation industry.
That's insane. So they're basically the factory floor for the streaming wars.
Yeah.
You're working with Amazon, Netflix, Disney.
And their range is incredible. They can do everything from the raunchy comedy of Big Mouth to a children's classic like Harriet the Spy. Their stylistic flexibility is key.
And they seem to have very stable leadership, which helps with that consistent delivery.
It does. And they're also expanding into new territory. They're developing a new series called Anime Club with cartoonist Casey Green, which is all about modern fandom and high school outcasts. So they get where the audience's attention is going.
So now let's connect that production muscle, Titmouse's muscle, directly to some of the most anticipated streaming hits for 2026. They're a huge partner on the Critical Role universe for Prime Video.
Which has been a monster success.
A monster success in adapting tabletop RPGs to animation.
This franchise is just a cornerstone of that whole adult fantasy wave. We saw The Mighty Nine, based on the second campaign, premieres late in 2025.
Right, set 20 years after Vox Machina.
And what really signals the streamer's confidence is the production schedule. Voice recording for the first and second seasons of Mighty Nine was done by mid-2025.
So way before the first season even came out.
Way before. That kind of preemptive two-season commitment just shows you how much they value this dedicated adult fan base. They know they'll show up.
And narratively, The Mighty Nine is an evolution too. The sources note the character designs have more realistic proportions than the earlier series.
A more sophisticated visual approach. And meanwhile, the original show, The Legend of Vox Machina, is still going strong. Season 4 is confirmed for 2026.
And it's already been renewed for a 5th and final season. unprecedented.
And for fans who want even more, there are prequel graphic novels coming out too. It's a whole ecosystem of content.
So beyond high fantasy, Titmouse is also handling the visuals for Adult Swim's thriller, Common Side Effects.
Another great one. That was renewed for season 2 right before its season 1 finale, back in March of 2025.
When are we expecting season 2?
Looks like late 2026, probably a fall schedule for Adult Swim. And the production timeline is, again, just remarkable. Production started in May 2025, and the storyboards for the first episode of the new season were approved by October.
That is incredibly fast.
It's an aggressive schedule. It suggests they want to get this complex, serialized drama back on the air as fast as they possibly can.
And the story continues with Marshall and Francis fighting Big Pharma over that mysterious healing mushroom. What about plot teasers? Any hints for season 2?
We're promised new plot twists, weirder science, and the introduction of cult theories. Sources are teasing flashbacks to a 1992 science fair and a reference to a so-called Blue Angel cult.
So they're just deepening the mystery.
Exactly what that audience wants.
You know, we can't talk about Titmouse and Adult Swim without taking a moment to look at their legacy with the Venture Bros.
Oh, absolutely. Titmouse produced seasons 5 through 7.
And that show is just so critical in defining what modern serialized adult animation could be.
It was so much more than a comedy, it was. It was insightful. It explored these really heavy themes like the death of the space-age dream world. And maybe most relevant for today, it wrestled with this feeling of trying to escape generational failure. Parental baggage.
I remember the creators talked about how they shifted from just focusing on failure to embracing these tiny successes and actual character growth in the later seasons.
And that thematic depth is what defines the best adult animation today. Plus, the talent that came out of that show, they went on to work on huge hits like Steven Universe and OKO. The influence just ripples outward.
So what does this all mean for you, the viewer, as you get ready for 2026?
I mean, it means we're finally seeing the full maturity of animation as a medium. It's capable of serious, high-concept genre storytelling. It's not just stuck in the family aisle or the lowbrow comedy section anymore.
And you have the traditional studios trying to find their footing by aiming at older teens, but the real energy, the real volume, is all on streaming.
The synthesis is really clear. The landscape is now defined by this massive industrial-level production capacity. You know, Titmouse doing 20 shows at once. And that capacity is supporting this huge genre shift we've been talking about.
From video game and D&D adaptations to intellectual thrillers about human-animal hybrids.
And the streamers are just competing fiercely with this high-quality animated content that's built specifically for dedicated adult fan bases who grew up demanding complex stories.
It's a full-on genre war, and animation is the chosen weapon.
And here's the final provocative thought that the sources really seem to suggest. The massive success of shows like The Legend of Vox Machina and The Mighty Nein, it's a direct response to a generation that grew up on complex anime and cinematic video game cutscenes.
That's their narrative language.
It is. So given that video game franchises are now the biggest IPs for the 14 to 34 demographic, bigger than movies, you have to ask, does the 2026 slate mark the final step where genre-driven adult animation overtakes the traditional family blockbuster as the single most vital sector of the entire industry?
That is definitely something to think about while you wait for a Bowser Art Gallery spinoff.
Yeah.
We appreciate you diving deep with us. We'll catch you next time.